Rudy, as an old neuroscientist, I am still just amazed at the difference of opinion of where memory occurs. It's not just people don't know how it works. It's the orders of magnitude difference. Some people would say it's at the quantum level, the synapse level, neural circuitry, whole brains, and some would go outside the physical world itself. This vast orders of magnitude difference of where that core memory engram, as they say, is stored. Where do you think the memory is?
We have no idea where memory is stored. We have one model and from Hameroff and Penrose about storage in a digital way in the microtubules that make up the cytoskeleton of
Yeah,
the
but
neuron.
that's an extreme one. The primary one is at the synapse. And you see that in sea slugs, you see that in various animals, that you can show memory that occurs, and you can disrupt it with chemicals. And
you can disrupt the recall of memory, not the memory. You have to remember that there's two parts to this. There's the formation of the memory and storage somewhere, and then there's the recall of the memory with those same synapses. What we don't understand is how synapses fire to create sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts that are parts of memory. We understand how we can block their recall or not. So this is still the hard problem. We haven't solved it yet.
No, that's correct. And the question of what is consciousness and the heart problem and the question of memory are related, but they're separate questions. Now we're talking about where is that memory engram stored, that core element of memory. What are the options? You gave me a quantum physical one that Penrose and Hameroff have. The traditional one is at the synapse level.
Well,
are there
it's
others?
interesting. I ask neuroscientists, especially cognitive neuroscientists, all the time, where is memory stored? And you get a lot of hand waving. You get enough synapses in association with each other, and it creates the picture of your mother. It creates the feeling you had just after you heard about 9/11. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
You can just have a bunch of synapses firing to create that again? It's created by that? And maybe it is. But it's still not clear biologically. No one would tell you at the biological level that we understand chemically, biologically, how at a synapse you can actually create and store a memory.
So give me an alternative.
I'm willing to admit that we just don't know yet, and we need to do more science to figure it out.
Do you think that it's possible that the memory is encoded outside the scientific realm of investigation?
As a scientist, a responsible scientist, you have to say that one hypothesis that should be tested, besides the fact that the idea that memory is stored in the brain, is that memory is stored outside of the brain in a sea of consciousness. We haven't ruled out either, have we?
Well, the burden of proof would seem to be on you to see that's even a remote possibility, because that postulates the existence of something that we can't see. We can postulate that memories exist on a gold planet outside of the orbit of Pluto. We can postulate. How do you prove that's wrong?
There's just as much burden of proof, given how much we don't know, to show that memories themselves live and are stored in the brain versus outside the brain.
How would you justify and explain at all memories being stored in a sea of consciousness outside the brain? Just give me some ways to understand how that could possibly work.
I think unless you've had I find that there's two types of people in science you talk to who believe it's possible or not. The ones who have had an experience that they can't explain, like for myself, series of lucid dreams where, I was somewhere in a lucid dream, awakened a dream, and then a week later, I'm exactly there, the same thing happening, right? So an event like that, or an out-of-body experience, certain experiences of telepathy, as soon as you have a really hardcore experience where you can't explain it, you're willing to open your mind. If you haven't had that yet, then it's just, it's reasonable to just say, don't even think about it. You might as well just say that,
all right, so I'm saying, but when you are willing to admit something beyond the brain, what is that? Just tell me what it is, what it could be. What are some characteristics of it?
If you believe that the brain is a product of consciousness that we perceive in our physical model of the world, then it's just the part of consciousness that's not the brain.
But what does that mean, that the brain is the product of consciousness? What does that mean?
Because you're perceiving the brain, just like I perceive you, and I don't believe you're physical. I believe my physical models just allow me to say you're physical, but I'm perceiving you in consciousness. My brain's no different than you. I can perceive my brain.
So you're saying the consciousness...
It's a physical object just like you're a physical object in our physical model.
And the table is the same kind of physical object as the brain.
Yeah,
so you're
there's
saying
no difference.
Consciousness is creating everything. It doesn't care whether it's a table or a brain.
The brain itself is part of consciousness.
But this is a massive supposition, right?
I think it's a lot more reasonable supposition than to believe that in that supposition of just pure consciousness manifest from awareness in the universe is much easier to I think to address scientifically than the Santa Claus Easter Bunny idea of physical trinkets floating around in a magic house in reality and called the universe, and then it ends. I mean, when you're a kid and you think about, my twin sister and I used to do this. You would say, let's think about the world and let's picture what it's like where there's no more world and then there's just infinity. It's crazy to say, oh, now there's infinity, there's nothing. Oh yeah, there's a vacuum, and then they'll say, oh, there's fluctuations in the vacuum. These are just models. These are still just models. The M1 model of Mladenau and Hawkins and the grand design, they're still just models. And I think when you're a kid, you have actually a little kid, and you really just think about it, you get a better sense of how crazy it is to believe that.